Hi, my name is Troy Zepeda, and I am the trainer here at Integra Business Systems. And today's training is going to focus on identify.web, but the admin side as opposed to the end user side. Now, everything dealing with like the Active Directory or the licenses, the users in the system, the configuration of a lot of the items in the system, those are all handled in identify.core. If you have the ability or the rights to get into identify.core underneath the administration side, then you simply just click on identify.core. And now you're connected directly to identify.core. Again, this is where all of the groups, the users, your sessions, your roles, and these are some of the things that we're going to be talking about in this portion of the video here. So let's go ahead and continue talking about the Active Directory. Now, we stated before, when you create your groups in Active Directory and you click on groups, this is where you're going to be able to import your groups from Active Directory. You're simply going to click on the button that says Add Group. It's asking me for a group name right now, but once Active Directory is actually turned on, all of your group names will come over. You can actually pick and choose what group names you want to import. Now, how do you actually turn on the Active Directory so you can start importing those? That's going to be directly on the Identify web server. You're simply just going to go from the web server and go to Server Configuration. Click on User Authentication, and you're going to choose Active Directory. Of course, fill in your blanks here. When you hit OK, that actually turns on the Active Directory synchronizing with our system. So let's put this back to the way it was. And going back here to Core, when you are back here and you click on that Add Groups, that's when you're going to get a dialog box so you can actually pick and choose what groups you want to import into the system. We're going to continue with the same scenarios that we were using before at the beginning of the video. When we're typing in the group name, we're just going to do identify. We're going to do identify, and let's go ahead and do an underscore here. We'll call it identify loan underscore scanning. This is going to be the name of our group. We click on the green check mark. It creates that group name. Now, right now, the only thing that's been created is a group name. There's nothing set up yet as far as who's in that group and what can that group do. So the next thing you need to do is you need to assign what's called role membership. You are also going to have to do this even if you are using Active Directory, because the groups that come over from Active Directory, there is no security tied to those. They're just blanket groups with a bunch of users inside that group. So here, identify underscore loans underscore scanning is just the name of the group. Let's go ahead and assign the roles. What is the main function of this group? Well, from the name, it looks like they're going to be able to go in and scan loan documents. So let's go ahead and go into the role membership. Once you're in the role membership, then you can go ahead and apply what roles you want to apply for this particular group. Think of the roles as functions. What is the main function of this group? And like we said before, the main function of this group is going to be scanning loan documents. So, by default, this is a complete list of 18 different roles. Let's go ahead and click on Show All. We can see everything on a complete list here, all on one screen. Now, I don't believe that the people that are going to be in the Identify Loan Scanning group are going to be administrators. They're just going to be scanning, so we can bypass all of these. The ones that we want to get to more than likely have to do with web. They're not going to be administrators, so we can stay away from the word administrator. But do we want the people in this group, the loan scanning, are they going to be doing indexing of the loans, or are they just going to be scanning? Remember the beginning we were talking about you might have two separate groups, a loan scanning and a loan indexing. If you're going to have them do the same, then of course you're going to create or select the same roles as well. We're going to go on with the scenario where, yes, they are going to be doing two different functions within this one group. They're going to scan, they're going to index, so we need to make sure we choose indexing and scanning. And then we also want them to be a web user. We want them to be able to get into the web program. We're going to add the selected roles. So just to recap, all we've done so far is we've either imported the group from Active Directory or manually created it. If you're importing that group from Active Directory, you're already probably going to have users in that group that came over from Active Directory. If you're not using Active Directory whatsoever, you need to put people or members inside of that group. And this is where we're going to do that. We're going to click on User Membership. Right now, nobody is in that group. We're continuing on as if we were not Active Directory. Click on Add User to Group. You're going to go ahead and pick a couple users. Again, these are going to be the users that you want to be able to scan and index loan documents. Okay? Select your users. Click on Add Selected Users. Now these users are part of this group. Well, again, if they don't come over from Active Directory and I click on Add Users, I might not even have users in there at all because they didn't come over from Active Directory. So how do I manually add those users into the system? If you click on the left-hand side here where it says Users, you're going to click on Add User, and then you're going to fill in. Let's go ahead and create another user. Troy. Zepeda. When you click in full name, it should automatically populate everything for you. What do you want that user's name to be? What's their logon name? A lot of customers, when they're not using Active Directory, they'll create the logon name to be the same as their network logon. And they also set the password to be the same too, just so it can kind of not really be synced up or anything, but just so it's less confusing so they all have the same logon. Type in an email address, password. What do you want the password to be? Green check mark. You will see that throughout the program whenever you want to save changes. Click on the green check mark. We just created that user. Okay. Let's go back to our groups where we were before. Remember the group we created manually? Identify _ loan scanning. Let's click on that group. I want to add the user we just created. I want to add that to this list. So I'm going to go right back to Add User to Group. I don't see it here in the list. It might be on page 2, or you can filter down to that particular person. Pick and choose that person and add that user to this group, the one we just created. Okay, let's go back to the beginning. Groups, where we were before. You click on Groups. Again, this is where it's going to show you a list of groups. Again, we're just doing a little quick recap here. This is the group name we created. Let me click on that. Remember, we did the role memberships. We added specific roles for that person or for that group. If we go to user membership, we're going to see everyone who's inside of that group. Okay. I know the name of the group is actually called loans, but nowhere have we actually stated that that's what they can scan. Remember, under the role membership, it just says yes, they can scan, yes, they can index, but it hasn't told. We haven't told the system yet that yes, they can scan and index loan documents. That's actually the next step. Let's go ahead and do that next. This next step is actually where we assign the groups that we've created to the actual application, where we've added. The next section that we're going to talk about is actually assigning the application to the groups. The next part we're going to talk about is where we actually assign the groups that we've created and place them inside the applications. In this instance, we'll be talking about the loan scanning group. That's where we're going to put it together. So in order to do that, we're going to go back into, not core, but we're going to go right back to the web program. This is where we went to initiate the identify.core system, but we're done with that part. Let's go ahead and we're going to stay under administration, but this is where we're actually going to go in and click on setup. What do we want to set up? We actually want to set up the different applications. Applications could actually be referred also to the filing cabinet drawers of a filing cabinet. The top drawer is for loans, the second drawer is for deposits, then HR, then accounting. These are different sections in the system. We call them applications, but they can also be referred to as databases as well. So, once you click on applications, this is where we should see a complete list of all of the different applications. We were actually just playing around with the group called loans. So let's go into the loans application. Let's go ahead and set up the security for the loans application. Who can get into loans? What groups? What was the name of the group we just created? I believe it was like identify loan scanning or something like that. Let's go ahead and add security. Let's add that group. And actually here it is right here. Identify loan scanning. We're going to put a check mark next to that group. Now remember, we only have 3 people in that group. What can those 3 people do? We already know that they can scan and index loan documents. That's what we're setting up now. But once they actually get into the system, can they delete notes? Can they change notes? Can they delete documents or print or email loan documents? That's where all of this setting is controlled right down here. Can they view the documents? That's by default, yes. Do you want that group to be able to print out of web, email, view a note, add a note, change a note, add documents into the system, index documents in the system, revise like a Word document or an Excel spreadsheet. Delete is kind of self-explanatory. Can they change the security on a document? All of these have to be set per individual, or in our case, for our scenario here, is per group. You make the choices. Most of the time when you're going to talk about scanning and everything, maybe you don't want those people to be able to set the security or delete the documents. Since they are being given the responsibility of scanning documents into the system, if they make a mistake and maybe index a document incorrectly, do you want them to have the ability to change that? Then yes, give them the ability to change or update the indexing values. Or maybe you want to tighten down the security, only make administrators have that ability to change indexing values or delete documents, some of the higher rights available in the system. Once you make your choice, you simply click on Add, selected Security at the bottom, and it's going to add that group now to our list. Where is it? It's right here. As an example, if you make a mistake on that previous screen, you can simply click on the Edit button, and it makes just the rights for that particular group right here. I really did not want to give them the ability to email. Make your changes. There's that green check mark again. Click on Update, and it saves that. All this information that we're doing, you do not have to do this on the server. If you are an administrator, all this ability, what we're doing here, follows you. These rights, this access follows you wherever you go within the system. Okay, let's do another recap, starting from the top. We either imported or we created a group. We added roles to that one group, that identify underscore loan underscore scanning. We added users manually if we're not using Active Directory. If we are using Active Directory, your usernames are probably already in there that came over from AD. We actually assigned that group to the loans database. Still, we have not told the system that yes, that group can actually scan loan documents. We said that they can scan, and we put them into the loan application where they can view and email and print loans, but nothing has to do with scanning just yet. I know the group name says scanning, but this is where we need to go one step further and actually put the scanning together with loans. This part is handled underneath imaging. Under scan plans, this is where you manage the scan plans. Think of the scan plan as a template or a profile for a specific scanner. Okay? You're going to have a scan plan maybe for loans, one for deposits, one for HR. Well, you got to set the security behind the scenes on that, and that's what this is right here. Once we click on the scan plans, more than likely your scan plans will be created automatically for you by the installation team here at Integra. We already have a scan plan here that says loans BW for black and white. Let's go ahead and click on that scan plan, and let's go to group membership. What groups can actually get into that scan plan? Let's go ahead and add a group to the scan plan. What is the name of the group? Here's the group right here. This is the one we've been working with. Identified underscore loans underscore scanning is now underneath the loan scan plan. So let's go ahead and test what we just set up. Let's see if it actually works. Let's go through it again. Let's go back to identified.core. I'm going to go back to groups. Here's the group I created. Here's a user, Integra. I'm logged on to the system as the Integra user. So since I'm logged on as the Integra user, I can go back to web, and I'm going to act as an end user. I'm simply going to click on the button that says From Scanner. I want to see if I can scan. Well, right now, based on the roles that I was given, says that I could scan documents. That's why I can see that button that says From Scanner. If your users are not in a group that has the scanning role, they will not see that option From Scanner. The other security that we set up was Loans BW. Remember, for loans black and white? I should be able to see that under Scan Plans. If I have the rights to see Loans BW, then I will see it here underneath Scan Plans. If I have no business scanning HR documents, I should not see HR documents as a scan plan. I have not been given those rights. So this tells me that yes, the security that we just set up is working properly. Now, just to let you all know, being administrators and everything, there's a lot more stuff that's actually being converted and compiled and set up and configured for you behind the scenes. Just to give you a few more instances of what's happening behind the scenes here, let's go ahead and close the scanning program here, and let's get back over to the imaging side. The Active Directory setup and the usernames and the groups and the rights and the roles, that's kind of technical, not too hard, not too difficult, But what gets a little bit more tedious is actually setting up the individual scanners themselves. There's a lot of scanners out there with a lot of different options, so you have to really go in and set up what's called the scanner settings, the scanner profiles. Are we scanning double-sided? Are we deleting blank pages? Are we straightening out the documents? Give you a couple examples here. Right now I have a Canon DR2580C, C standing for its color. So if I go into scanner settings here, I already have some basic scanner settings. A profile that's configured to scan black and white documents, color documents, maybe some driver's licenses for this particular scanner. So the limit here, there is no real limit. You can configure as many different scanner settings as you want, depending on what kind of scanner you have. More than likely, your scanner settings will automatically be set up for you by the implementation team. Just to let you know what's going on behind the scenes here. Hardware profiles are also being created. What's the list of the different types of scanners you're using? Every different type of scanner that you all use has to be configured as a hardware profile. All of these settings do not live on the machine itself. They all live on the web server. So whenever people are going to be doing scanning, they're just going to choose a simple scan plan. All the pieces of the puzzle are built in behind the scenes, right behind the scan plan. The end user, they choose just Loans BW. Everything else behind the scenes is set up to do exactly what they want it to do. Read barcodes, delete blank pages, straighten out the documents. All that information is already done, set up, configured. They just use a scan plan. So that's the simple part. I briefly mentioned the fact that we can actually use a lot of the scanner settings to do like reading of the barcodes and stuff like that. Again, the barcodes also have to be configured. Well, what types of barcodes do we recognize? There's tons and tons of different types of barcodes out there. We just need to know what barcodes are on your documents, what's inside that barcode, what are we supposed to be reading, how do we make our system smart enough to understand what's in that barcode. That's called a barcode format or a formula. That information is also set up behind the scenes by the installer. Just to give you a kind of an overview of what's going on there, we're going to go back to imaging and we're going to go to barcode formats. Under barcode formats, this is just a complete list, actually not even a complete list, just a sample list of all the different types of barcodes that we can read. Laser Pro, Deposit Pro, Sound, ARTA barcodes. There's tons and tons and tons. 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional. All these different types of barcodes have to be configured. So once you actually, and I'll just show you one that's already set up here. If we go back to scan plans, remember I was just saying the end user just has to choose a specific scan plan and it knows what to do. In this case, it knows to scan it as a black and white document. It knows to scan it as a TIFF. It knows to save that document, that TIFF document, to the loans database. Well, what barcodes are associated to the loans? These are all the different types of barcodes. So it doesn't really matter what barcode they have on the loan side as long as it's configured, set up, and assigned to that scan plan. Everything just works beautifully. The next thing we're going to talk about here on the admin side is actually how to add a document type to your dictionary drop-down list. So the scenario that we're going to play out here is I'm going to be an end user. I'm going to try and import a file. I'm going to try and index or label that file, but I do not see that word in my list. So this is how it's probably going to play out. Me being the end user, I'm going to click on From File. I'm going to try and grab a file and I'm going to try and place that document. We could say it could be a correspondence document or something like that. I want to place that correspondence document in the CIF or customer data file. and that file is actually a Word document. Maybe it's an email. It could be anything, really. When I go to open up that document, I'm going to go ahead and upload that file once it grabs it. It kicks me right in to do the indexing. Now here, I don't see the word correspondence or miscellaneous, or maybe I want to have a word in here called email. Well, how do I get that done? Does the end user need to get completely out of the system, delete what they've done so far? No, not at all. So simply, all they need to do is get completely out here, click on the back button, takes them right back to the system here. You have to have administrative rights to do what we're about to do. If the end user has these rights, of course they can simply do it, or if the administrator is going to be doing it for them, this is how it's going to be done. You go to administration and you click on setup. We're going to set up a new document type. Click on document types. Right here we are looking at a complete list, 884 items. Actually a list of 884 document types for the entire system. This is a complete list of loans, deposits, HR, report document types. Every single application that you have configured is broken out by document type. So, where do we want to add that document type? Let's go ahead and filter down to CIF. This is a complete list of only the items that appear when we're going to scan or import CIF documents or customer-driven documents. Don't know if you noticed this before, but when you're going in and you choose a specific document type, let's go into one that's already set up. Let's say tax return. When we click on tax return, and then we go into attributes, attributes being like the categories or the values that make up that document type. How do I want to label that document type? These are your options. These are already set up. All the required fields, or are they multi-value? Can you accept multiple names or multiple socials? Is it a computed attribute? All of these values, again, are already set up by us, Integra Business Systems, but you're about to create a brand new word. None of these values here are going to be set up. So the easiest thing to do is to print screen this. This is one that's already set up. Remember we went into tax return? This document type is already set up. The security is already there. The attributes are already there. The values here are already predefined. Let's go ahead and start all over again. Click on Setup. Go to Document Type. Remember, you want to narrow down your results to choose a specific application that you want to add it to. We already went into tax return and we did a print screen, or you could write them down or remember them. The easiest thing is to do a print screen. We already know how to do that. Well, what we want to do is we want to add a new word that has never been set up. So I got that print screen right in front of me. I want to add a new word. What is the word that I want to appear in the list? I want it to say email. I don't necessarily need a code there, but if I wanted to make it easier for me to find that word email, I could type in a code. I could just call it, say, EM. Let's just go ahead and leave it like that, and we'll actually show you how that's going to make it easier for you for the end user. Do you want to apply a retention policy? We're not going to go ahead and talk about that now here, or display profiles, but this is important. I have a document type called email. How do I want the lookup to work? Do I want to be able to type in an account number to pull in information, or do I want to pull in information after I type in a social security number? Remember, this word that we're about to add is going to go underneath the CIF or the customer level. So account numbers don't really apply to that. So in this case, the lookup is going to definitely be my tax ID number. always do encryption. So we're going to choose encrypted. I click OK, or the green check mark. This automatically saves those values. All you did is you created a word. Remember that screenshot that we're supposed to do? That's where the attributes come into play. It's completely blank. There's no idea of us to find out exactly what attributes to apply here. So that's where you're going to use that little cheat sheet that you printed out, and you're going to pick and choose what attributes here you want to actually apply. They should be exactly the same ones that you had for one that was already set up. So I'm just going to copy a couple of these here. Let's go ahead and we'll do customer number, customer type, maybe a date, tax ID number. I'm going to add selected attributes. Remember, those required fields are multi-value fields. You will also need to go in and edit these as well, and you can easily do that just by clicking on edit next to each one of these, and make sure you make the appropriate changes here. And when you do, there's that green check mark again. So all we've done so far is we've created the actual document type, and you've associated some of the attributes that go with that new document type. What you have not done yet so far is actually tell us where to put email. Does email actually go under loans, under deposits? Is it an HR document? Where do you want that word to appear when people go to scan documents or import documents? Let's go ahead and do that. This is where we're going to go ahead and go back to setup, go up to applications. This is where it's going to show you a list of all the applications that are set up in the system. Where do we want to put it? I believe we wanted to put it under customer or CIF. What are the document types that make up CIF? Here's your complete list. Email is not in there yet. We have not added it to this list yet. So let's go back to that full list that we were looking at before. Add document types. This is where it's going to come up with that big list of 800 or so. And there's our new word. Add selected document types. That will now add it to the list. Now I have 11 here. Let's go back and do our original scenario where we were trying to import that document. So I click on From File. I'm going to be able to choose where do I want to import that file to. In our case, we wanted to do it under CIF. I can go ahead and click on Add File, grab the file in that I want, and upload that file. Now I have email in my list. Remember that code that we were typing in, the EM? That's where that code applies here. So I know it's all on the same list, but to give you an example of how it would work, let's go to something that's on the second list. Tax is the code here. Let's go back to the beginning. You do not have to type in the full word, tax return. You can just type in the code, TAX, and it automatically goes back to the code. You choose what you want. So in our case, what we were doing was email. You can type it in uppercase, lowercase, or a mixture of the two. It doesn't matter. The system is not case sensitive, so once they go ahead and they choose what they want, remember those attributes? That's where these come into play. So you want to make sure when you set up your attributes for a new document type, they are exactly the same for an existing document type that's in the same application. Okay? So hopefully this helped you out a little bit with adding a new document type to your list.